Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good. Oh my gosh. Man. I've been having a hard time getting everything ready here this morning, so my lights are not working. That is probably way too bright. The camera is not. This other light is not working. Okay, let's turn on the music. That's probably a little too loud. I recorded a video this weekend, and like that's why I'm a little bit late, because I just don't have everything set up correctly. Hold on. Let's fix this light here. Oh, wait, what the heck? How come I can't see my main? That's so... Oh, man. That's so weird. There we go. Okay, we got that. It's really hot in here, too. What's your opinion on crude oil prices skyrocketing? Well, I've felt for a long time that oil prices were artificially suppressed, but I am a little bit skeptical about them being able to maintain these prices for very long. We'll see. Okay, I've got the speakers are still going here, so fix that. And I think I'm gonna have to open the window because it's super hot in here. Yeah. So we're getting to the point now where, you know, you have to have the heater and the air conditioner. And so I had the heater like vent wide open. And that was making it super hot in here. Okay, hold on. A few more things that I gotta take care of. All right. That feels much better already. I may regret opening that window because it's allergy season, man. My eyes are watering like crazy. Okay, so shall we come to the charts? Da-da-da. I can find my charts. That's not my charts. There it is, right there. Okay, so ZN. Wild week last week. Some, looks like non-farm, for the most part, kept us lower. by the end of our session on Friday, they had retraced a good portion of that non-farms payroll increase, right? But they gave that up and closed down towards the lows. And now here in the overnight, we have another noticeable move higher. So we have moved like another 10 basis points. We are, oh my gosh, it's a blank screen. Ugh. There we go. I don't know what's with that. Anyways. No, that's not the screen that we want to see. We want to see this one. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we're noticeably lower, okay? Like rates last week before this were like 4.3 and now they're 4.45. Okay? S&P 500 also pretty well, I don't know. I was going to say I got savaged. I think that was before that. That was like the Israel putting out a warning about its embassies and all that sort of stuff, right? Looks like they, after the non-farms, which they was kind of both ways, then during their regular session, they rallied. They're kind of still holding still. If the treasuries continue to push down, then it might hurt equities. So far, equities seem to be okay with what's going on in the treasuries. All right. Oil took a pretty decent drop over the weekend, but they are pushing on the upside again. So that might not be over. And again, one of the things that's going on here is that a lot of participants seem to think that you would need to have a much stronger economy, much more demand for oil prices to go much higher. So like maybe, we thought, oh, can they really hold above 80? But I think the bigger question is like 90 might be the ceiling is probably what they're looking at right now. But for now, we're not at any key levels or anything like that. And I'm not an oil expert. So probably when things get a little bit more crazy in oil, I might get better information. Yeah. Gold and silver continue to just keep pushing up. So gold and silver, I've just been on a complete tear because there are some real fears about inflation coming back. And the federal, there is no confidence that the Federal Reserve will be able to do anything about it or will do anything about it. They think that the Fed is going to keep things easy. They're still talking about cuts. So that's why I think you're seeing gold take off here. Copper also doing well. So the whole metals complex going up also kind of helps gold and silver. But it looks like that China is recovering significantly. And when you see that, you tend to see demand for copper go up because there is a lot of demand for copper in China. And then we got the Japanese yen. Oh my. So the Japanese yen, they've kind of been like just kind of skidding along the bottom here. But now the past few days, they started to push even lower. And like the central bankers in Japan have like really been trying to jawbone the markets, etc. So it hasn't happened yet, but we should be aware and look out for possible central bank currency intervention in the Japanese yen. I'm surprised that it hasn't happened already, but they're not going to let that go on for too long. They're probably going to, really, really pick their spot, because the worst thing that you want to have happen is you do the intervention and then it goes even lower, right? If you do the intervention, you really got to make sure that it's something that makes a meaningful difference. But for now, Japanese yen kind of drifting to the downside along with the treasuries, and the dollar is sitting right at 104. Oh, and then we should also check Bitcoin. Bitcoin having a little bit of a jump over the weekend, it looks like. Nothing too big, but towards the higher end of the range that they've been in. There's a little bit of concern with some of these prices down here, and there are some like altcoins like Solana has been getting savaged. So some risks going on over in the cryptocurrency space. All right. And I should also take note of the yield curve here. kind of going sideways. The flows in the treasury is all very much to the downside. So I don't like to take trades on Monday, but I am certainly leaning towards a short here. Do I not have a terminal open? I guess I need to open up my own terminal. Let's see here. So first we need to move today's to, it was the 5th, right? Friday was the 5th. Yes. MD. All right, so what do we got here? Flows. Monday flows tend to be slow. All right. Japanese yen continues decline despite central bank job owning. Recovery flows from China. This is going to be like much more international macro today, it looks like. And then we do have news this week, right? That's another thing we need to consider in CPI Wednesday. Okay, so if I'm going to hedge against the CPI release on Wednesday, I'm almost certainly going to be hedging short in the treasuries. I am not in anticipation that inflation could be high, but that's the risk, is that inflation could be higher than anticipated. Okay. That's likely to be the way that you would see the hedgers hedge. But a lot of people kind of don't want to make big plays ahead of the CPI. So while you will see the hedgers sell, overall it kind of means that the market kind of just drifts sideways. It's what tends to happen there. Okay. So I think those are the main things that we got going on here. Keep that there. Keep that down. Okay, what about NQ? Your thoughts? Well, so I don't really look at NQ all that much differently from just ES in general. So I look at the equities as a whole. And if I'm going to make differentiations between them, it's going to be more like individual stocks rather than the difference between the indexes, okay? But what I see over in equities is a market that just continues to push up in spite of everything that's going on. Like, they're very long in the tooth. You can kind of see that there's risks. Like Thursday, I think, was a big wake-up call for a lot of markets because, you know, I don't think that the news that we got was like that huge of a deal, but it kind of showed how vulnerable the market was to, you know, once something got going, they really, really went, right? So, but they're likely to continue trying to push up. Like, they don't want to quit. And when you got a bull market, like, they don't want to quit. That's why when my mentor always said that, and he didn't come up with this, I don't know where he got this from, but he said that tops are a kind of a process, whereas bottoms are more an event. So when you get a big market bottom, it just happens all at once. But a market top is kind of a process. And I kind of think that we've gone through a period of mania somewhat in the stock market. Like, you can really see some of the froth coming into the markets and so forth. Now that the warning has kind of been put out, they probably continue to move up. But, you know, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be maybe not quite as good as before. And that's how that process starts, of kind of like peaking and then, you know, coming down and fighting before, you know, they really actually give up. And by the time that you realize that it's a bear market, you know, like, it's already like way too late. Wednesday will be a big day. CPI. Well, so, you know, the FOMC meeting minutes, that's an interesting one because not a lot of people think about that one. I don't know how big of a deal that will be. Yeah, it kind of depends on how much interesting internal conversation that we were not privy to already did we think happened at the last Federal Reserve meeting. I felt like they were kind of quiet the last Fed meeting. Maybe there could be a lot there. There is a 10-year bond auction on Wednesday as well. But it's that CPI. CPI is the big one. They're looking for a reading of spot 3 is the estimate that I have out there right now. If we got like a core CPI of spot 4 again, like we did last month, then I really think that the markets could solidify the turn that we've had in the past few weeks, where the treasuries say, yeah, we're going higher. The 10-year starts to head towards 5%, that sort of a thing. And that will mean that today and tomorrow are going to be relatively quiet as a result. Okay, so a couple more questions here. I'm going to try and get to all of you guys here. Said that the best teacher is looking at the market. Well, so you got to understand that this is a sort of a thing that is extremely complicated and somewhat unpredictable. And so to really learn it, it's not something that you can just like read a book and memorize all of the correlations and patterns and do well at. So you have to come in and watch it every day and build up that experience. And the front of your brain, that frontal lobe, is kind of like a chat GPT in the front of your brain that is taking that information. Every time that you come in and you watch the market, you see what news is going on, you see how the markets react, you look at the overall market framework and which flows are going to be coming in, right? That's training data that is training that frontal lobe so that in the future you can understand those situations better. So the best teacher is the market, because it's just like, you know, if you're going to play basketball, you can't just sit and read a book, right? You have to actually go and play basketball. And people think that that's because, well, yeah, but you have to train your body. Well, yes, but in this is a place where you have to train your brain. You really do. And if you train your brain on junk, then, you know, it's just going to come out with junk, which is what a lot of traders do. Because they're not looking at the right things. They don't have a holistic view of the market. What's the relationship between equities and treasuries? Okay, so this one has actually come up a lot over the past week because we have seen the correlation switch in the past week. So the traditional correlation is that treasuries and equities should be negatively correlated, which means that when equities go up, treasuries sell and vice versa. And that's because when the stock market is doing well, then you raise interest rates. Higher interest rates go opposite of prices. So you'll see interest rates and equities go up and you'll see the treasuries go down, right? But when you have the primary thing that's driving the markets is liquidity itself being injected by the Federal Reserve, that's when you'll see them move in correlation. Like you'll see them move at the same time because both treasuries and equities will go up because they're keeping interest rates low so that there's more money in the market, push the markets up, right? Or vice versa, they're taking money out. You'll see both equities and treasuries go down because higher interest rates, treasuries go down. Equities don't like that. There's not as much money in the system. They go down as well. Okay, but when it is more the economic conditions that are pushing things, or there is a flight to safety, like there was on Thursday. Thursday was a flight to safety trade. Okay. Equities sold, treasuries bought up pretty big because there was concerns about geopolitical tension. Then you get the positive correlation, or sorry, then you get the negative correlation there. Right? So you have to look at the specific flow. What is what triggered those specific flows? Why are those people trading? And what are they going to do as a result? And so the correlations kind of switch, and it's a complicated thing, and you have to be able to judge, what is going on, why is it moving today, and ergo, what are they likely to do because of that. Okay. What about financial markets economification? I'm not sure what they're talking about there. Kind of sounds to me like one of those left-leaning criticisms of modern day capitalism. I'm gonna guess that it's gonna rail against the financialization of all assets, something like that, right? Oh, it's a YouTube channel? Oh. You know what? My YouTube channel, it's super weird. It doesn't, or not my YouTube channel, like my front page, For You page. I guess they don't have that on YouTube, but what you would consider my For You page. It doesn't have a lot of market stuff. You'd think that it does, but I just do not like most of the financial content that I see put out on YouTube. It's either financial junk food, which is primarily people talking about patterns and theories about the markets that have absolutely no proof behind them and contradict some of the empirical evidence that we have about how markets really behave. It's either that or overly ideological, soothsayers. Especially on the right. There are a lot of these kind of more financial content-based guys that, like, their whole thing is the Federal Reserve should be eliminated, for instance, right? I just have no interest in consuming content about that. Another thing that you have to keep, so there's a slightly more complicated thing, is that trading and economics, like economic science, have a kind of a tenuous relationship because most of the research is out there is more interested in political issues, right? They're doing economic research to try and say X policy or Y policy would be better. Would America be better off if we fixed the underfunding issue in Social Security by increasing taxes on the rich versus changing the benefits, for instance? Right? Can we model that out? And okay, so this is where Keynesianism comes in. Is they've discovered that, hey, if we print money and we put money into the markets, that does tend to help markets. It does tend to push them up. But then what are the most and least effective ways of doing that? Right? And that's Keynesianism. And all of that research has kind of gone into that. But the issue is that when they're looking at it from a high level economic perspective, you kind of have this one view of markets. And when you actually go in and you start studying the market and how the market moves, which is where I would really recommend learning about market microstructure and going into that field. That's the category of research that you want to read. You find out that the market is really not what the economists think. The economists assume that the market is perfectly efficient, and it's not even remotely efficient. That there are very, very deep inefficiencies built into the very structure of the market that causes it to behave the way that we see on a high level. So as a trader, you're gonna have to learn to be very what is the word? I don't want to say discriminate, but use discretion as to what kind of content you're consuming and spending your time on. Because if you're learning about keys, not that there's anything wrong with learning about keys stuff, but it's probably not going to help you a whole lot in trading, right? Versus learning about market microstructure, learning about the square root law of meta order impact, those sorts of things. That's really, really valuable for a trader. So, but I don't really get a lot of content. Somebody was, part of it is that a lot of these creators too, like in the trading space, are just charlatans, right? So, but I can look it up. There was some other guy you guys had recommended, and I never got around to looking them up. UCPH Spring 2020 Economification. I'll look it up later. Does he have a market microstructure course? Oh, I do see here. Oh, this is going way back. He's got way more stuff on here than that. Okay. So this is some good stuff. So he talks about the Kyle model. That's good. The empirics of liquidity. I think I know what he's talking about here. Exercise class 3 part 1. Okay, I don't know. Somewhere on here I saw class another one of these. Oh, there's a bunch of these. Wow, there's a ton of these. It sounds like some of this stuff is probably going to go into some like hyper basic things that you might be like, eh. There's lecture. It starts at lecture 7. So where's 1 through 7? Some of this stuff might not be. There you go. Auction models. Clostum Milgram. That's familiar, but I forget what that is. I think that's in this book. Let me look. Yes, it is. 242. Let's see here. Farmer Intel proposed yet another theory that is very reminiscent of the Clostum-Milgram model, which argues that the size of the bid-ask spread is actually set competitively. Oh, I got you.
Block by.
So that is important. That's kind of one of the models along the way. Although I think that there's some other stuff that's going to be a little bit more advanced. So let me tell you something. That book, Trades, Quotes, and Prices, it's like really on the forefront of things. Like they've been doing market microstructure research for decades now. Like going back to when I was born, 40 years now, right? The Kyle model was when I was born, 1985. Okay, but the John Philippe and these other guys, they've done research much more recently that I think does a really good job of explaining how the market microstructure kind of leads to the higher level things that we see. And so you might not get some of that stuff. In particular, the whole thing about like how when you look at a Walrasian auction and then you turn that into a continuous auction, you can see how the things like the square root law emerge from that. Probably not going to get that from this. I'm going to guess. Because how much are each one of these is an hour? Are you kidding me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Okay, so 32 hours, and that's only starting at lecture 7 for watching these videos. You can probably read that book faster. This playlist is good for beginners and explains it a pleasant and easy way to understand. Yeah. I mean, really, the best place to start, I think, would be my little series that is like what, 5 or 6 videos, 20 minutes each, 3 hours. Probably can do it in an hour and a half by watching it at double speed. Maybe watch it double speed twice. Because there, I'm kind of skipping over all of the details, right? Because some of this stuff might be with the intention that you will be writing your own study of some sort, right? Which I would love to do, but most of you are just interested in trading it, right? And so you're kind of going to be more interested in understanding the concept and seeing the application of it. And my YouTube channel is the only place that I know of where we give you ideas on how you can apply these concepts into your own trading. Like, what are the practical implications of these to you and your trading? This is super important. And that's the contribution that I think that I've made. So I can explain to you a practical framework for you to use this information in your own trading. Or one a day at work, yeah. Or maybe I'll watch them. That's not the first playlist of that sort that you guys have shown me, though. There's more than one of these out there. And that's where I'm like, this is the thing that I don't think retail traders understand, is that I'm like one of the only guys on YouTube that's like, a personality with a YouTube channel actually talking about this. But I'm only talking about something that they've been talking about in academics for decades. Right? You can go to school and you can basically make this your degree. And had I known 40 years ago, maybe I would have gone into that and, my world would be completely different. I probably would have still done programming and just done it on my own, but I think I would rather have, I think I'd still prefer the way that my life did turn, because, I am so interested in the technology stuff. That's always been me as a little kid. I think finance still kind of ends up being a secondary interest. And I think I prefer learning about the finance on my own rather than having to go and learn about the programming on my own. Because with learning about finance, it's this mystery. And as you learn about things, some of the mysteries get solved and it kind of like ruins the allure of it. Okay, but because I don't completely understand, and I guess nobody completely understands the financial markets, but it's not it's not as much of a mystery. Or rather, because it's more of a mystery because I don't have that schooling. Whereas having that mystery for computer science would just be a constant like frustration for me, probably. With the way that things are now, I know that as long as I understand like a concept, a model, I have the skills and ability to make it happen on the computer side, to program it. I can program, extremely complicated things. There's really nothing that I don't fill with enough time and effort that I could tackle, right? And if I didn't have that, it would be very frustrating. I would rather have that ability and, just not know as many models rather than know all of these models and not be able to put it into code, I don't know. You know what, Andre? You're the second person to mention Patrick. Man. Okay, so who was it? He's not here yet this morning. It's funny, man. It was Obsidian. Obsidian was mentioned Patrick last night. So does that mean that because Patrick did order flow, that's why you've all been seeing him pop up on your front pages now, because order flow is becoming a bigger keyword out there? Because that's one of the things that I've always kind of thought is like, well, YouTube, I don't think that YouTube hates my channel. I think that the things that I come up for are super niche. I will come up for things specifically to do with futures and specifically to do with order flow. And since there's not a lot of people out there talking about order flow, you don't get as many people to the channel, right? But if all of a sudden Patrick is talking about order flow, then maybe you get more people coming to the channel. But I gotta warn you, if you're not familiar with Patrick, Patrick is a well-known, established, how do I say this? I don't know. I don't like talking about other people and throwing shade at other people, but with Patrick, I don't really care. Like maybe he's changed but I don't particularly care. Like, he's a charlatan. He was a charlatan. He was making all of these big trades and had this probably the biggest YouTube channel for a long time in trading. And everything that he was doing was fake. Everything that he was doing was fake. Then people called him out on it. He admitted it. And then he kind of like disappeared for a year. And now he's popping up again. Yep. He was straight up like trading on Sim. And he would just trade every big move that he could find on Sim. And if you do that like 10 times a day, eventually you'll find one that goes really big, right? And then you make a big reaction out of it and everything. And then that makes for good YouTube content, right? So he was getting all of this success on YouTube from making those big trades. And I'm sure he was making tons of money from it too. I mean, you've got to be making tens of thousands of dollars a month with the audience that he had at that time. And then, yeah, kind of all fell apart when he had to admit that he was faking it. He just needs to get, well, I wouldn't put him in the same category as ICT. Okay. I think that ICT is like a narcissist, probably. He's probably a narcissist, and he is intentionally going out there making crap up and misleading people and lying people and making money from lying to people, essentially. And he knows it. He knows it. So I put ICT in like the lowest tier of influencer. Like that's a straight up scam. Okay. I don't, how do you say scam? Well, are you paying him something? I guess to be scammed, you'd have to have been paying him something, right? But okay. Whereas Patrick, I kind of view Patrick more as like a guy with ADHD that just kind of like stumbled on success and couldn't resist the allure and made mistakes because of that, you know? But that's where it's kind of like, okay, so I'm not gonna like hate him or anything like that. Like I truly despise ICT. I think what he's doing to the trading community is really bad. Okay, I think his impact on the trading community has been really bad. Okay, Patrick, I don't really care what he has to say on a subject, but I'm not gonna hate him. So it's always been weird to me how his YouTube community posts will have 10k likes on them, but 0 comments. Oh no, YouTube's weird, man. When people can't make money in the stock market, they make a course. Yeah, well, I think it's much worse than that. You don't have to know. The issue is this, okay? Even if you were really successful with trading, you'll probably make more from being a top tier YouTuber than you will from being a top tier retail trader. That's the real issue there. So it's not like it's impossible for somebody to have had a lot of success trading and have a YouTube channel, right? But eventually the YouTube channel kind of like takes over for most people, right? Now, the benefit I have, the odd position that I have, is that what I do for a living makes more than I would probably ever make from either YouTube or from trading. So but like there is a real issue when like you're a guy and you're making like average wage or something like that, right? And then you start having success on YouTube and you shift over to YouTube being your a full-time thing, because that just influences your decisions a lot. I'm not going to say that makes them like not worth watching or anything of that like that, but you do have to factor that in to what you're watching. So I'll give you a better example. Since we're on the trip of taking names and stuff like that, okay, is a humbled day trader. So she started to have insane success in, after 2020 during that whole insane market, and became like the top YouTube names. So I think she probably has a larger following than any of the other people that we've talked about so far. And you can see how her content changed as that happened. As her YouTube channel became, I'm gonna bet you that she's made more from the YouTube channel than she has from the trading. I bet you that she had a lot of success during that one market, but it's probably been not as good since then, and probably the YouTube channel makes more. And you can see how her content has shifted to try and herd more people towards her courses and that. So the content is just, I'm not going to say that she's a charlatan. I don't think that I think she's trying to be genuine, but her content has shifted towards pushing people into the courses, and her content's not as good as a result. And she's less popular now because of that, because I think people recognize that. When you go on the day trading subreddit and you see people talk about that, that's what they talk about. And I think that they're right. What humble trader? What? Sorry, I can't see that word. The little heart is covering it. What she does? Well, I think she's trading stocks. So there's that. really, when it comes down to it, what am I about? I want to start with empirical information. There's so much knowledge out there about trading that is really just people's opinions, man. It's, I traded and I did this, so this is what I think things are. This was my experience. Or they are just like religious dogmas. And you can really see the religious dogmas and hold traders back. There was some really big macro moves last week. There were some really big market moving news headlines last week. And you can see all of the day traders trying to ignore it. Trying to say, oh no, the news doesn't matter, just follow the price action. And all of their arguments are just absolutely silly. You really understand the market. Their arguments are silly and make no sense. They are not logical arguments. But it's dogma to them at this point. I went and, because I did see a lot of, a couple of people did go, oh, you know what? I need to pay more attention to this. And so they were asking questions about it. So I wrote a post on Reddit last night, how to, better incorporate news into your trading. I gave it like the most boring title ever. Okay. And you know what? Got downvoted. I bet you. Let's come over and check it out. A quick guide to learning how to trade the news. Okay. 3 comments. Will it show me the upvoted, downvoted? Usually it shows me the upvoted, downvoted on these. I guess not. I can't see what percentage upvoted was. But it's only at 1. So like all the price action traders all come in and are like, no, we shouldn't be teaching people about how to utilize news in their trading, and they downvote it. Okay. Right. So yeah, there are people out there, they have a little bit of success, and maybe they were just lucky, who knows? But they don't really have the empirical information about the market. And so I get really frustrated because, everybody's learning from these people. They get popular for different reasons, but they're not actually learning, the stuff that we're talking about. And I get frustrated because I want to have more of a discussion about this stuff, the things that we actually know are true, the things that we actually have empirical evidence to back up, Someone must have said once, tell people the truth and they'll hate you forever. It's true. Izzy, how should I trade? Go out there and lose some money. That's my $1,000 trading course. There you go. Yeah, here's a link of the Reddit post. I have posted this information, or not posted, talked about this information countless times on this live stream. This is just the first time that I put that particular bit down into words. And I'm super vague because, you don't want to be, or they have rules against promoting affiliate links or spam. And so I kind of feel like if I mention any one individual website or service, that could potentially get it taken down. So it was really big. But here on the live stream, I don't have to do that. And I can talk about, so like if I'm going through this, understanding key economic data releases, I like to use the Forex Factory calendar for that because Forex Factory has a good description of all of the different events and they link you to the actual report. So you go, and you know what? If you just sat down and read all of the economic reports for the month in one sitting, that would really suck. Okay, so read them as they come out, but after a month, you should have read all of the reports. And that will really, really improve your understanding of the market. Find a morning report. I use News Squawk/blog. They have a post that they put every morning. And that's what I use to digest the overnight action. News Squawk, I use Financial Juice. It's the most affordable option for retail traders. They do a really good job. I have an affiliate link in the video description. End of day commentary. So for that, my favorite end of day commentary is probably the Zero Hedge synopsis. Although that one is a little scant on details. If you're just beginning, I kind of would recommend watching Fast Money and Jim Cramer. don't watch the whole Jim Cramer episode, but like especially the beginning, like first 5 minutes of Jim Cramer's show, he does a really good job of explaining what the market's doing and why they do what they're doing. I wouldn't follow his trades or anything like that, but I think he gives good information for starting out. Read major Wall Street reports. So for this, I have zero hedge. Might also think about having a subscription to a news service like the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal. That's a little bit more expensive, but watch the Federal Reserve press conference that you can just see on YouTube. Politics for politics, I have a bunch of different places that I go. I go to Politico, I go to Hot Air, I go to Red State, I go to Reddit, I go to like Salon and all of these kind of leftist newspapers. Talk to other traders. That's the Futures Trading Discord. And then these other things study. For study, I will write things down in my text editor. And things that I think are really good, I will actually write down in permanent pen in this little notebook that I've got. I've kind of turned it into like there's like a tier of stuff. So like there's these simple notebooks that I can just kind of scribble in and I don't care about. And then there's the really nice one with super thick paper and everything that, you know, I've practiced and I already have the exact words that I'm going to write. And so I just transcribe it down and as neatly as I can, which I don't think that my handwriting is that good, but I flop a single contract on my DOM and that little one shows up. I'd say so far, you know, they've been to the upside. It's a decent recovery for a Monday. Well, let me go back here. DC Verax says a majority of gurus are in FX and stocks. That's definitely true. But part of the thing with ICT was that ICT was a very well-known person within the FX community for a long time. And what basically happened was the FX community got so sick of him that, you know, he couldn't make money anymore from it. And that's when he moved over into the future space. And it was when he moved over into the future space that it seems that he really took off for some reason. Maybe the 2020 pandemic had more to do with it than anything. I don't know. But it seems to me that futures are getting more popular. It's coming into some of those big services. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more retail traders doing it. And futures will probably, you know, 5 years from now be a lot more popular and a larger section of the market than they are today. So there was this ICT guy who was really getting popular. He was trading ES on TradingView and was bragging he forgot to blur out his lot size and he was trading 100 lots. When I pointed out that the tape doesn't confirm his trade and that he is on sim, he started to blur his position size, but not his P&L. Oh man, yep, dude. There is a. Do I still have? I don't know where it is. Where I saved all that stuff, but the guys over at Baby Pips, that's what it is. The guys over at Baby Pips have a long-standing like drama thread with that guy, and they put up a web page where they posted all of the pictures of the back and forth that they've had with him on Twitter. It's literally going to be hours of your life reading all of this drama about ICT. It's absolutely insane. So yeah, doesn't surprise me at all that he's still doing that crap. Have you seen some wild? Oh, of course, every day. I still remember that infinite money glitch that guy did where he kind of, ooh, okay, that's interesting. Did we just get some news there? Oh, I didn't hear or see anything. But that was a good jump. Let's see here. I did not see that jump in the Japanese yen, so I don't think that it was due to the Japanese yen. Or Japanese central bank intervention, which was kind of one of the flows that I've been, on the lookout for. It could just be endogenous. That I think would be within the realm of endogenous move, stop out sort of a thing. Hopefully, more people doing futures will make brokers make putting money in your accounts easier. Right. Sometimes transferring money to your account is a pain with some brokers. So I had with Edge Clear with Phillips Capital, like they've improved that process. Like I can use PayPal to like make a transfer, but they would only let me use the one. Like I have 2 accounts attached to the PayPal, and it wouldn't let me use the right one. So I had to do the ACH transfer thing first, where they put they give you like 5 cents, and then you have to tell them how much they sent you to verify the account and stuff. Kind of annoying, but yeah, I can put $10 a day in my E-Trade account if I wanted to. I'd like for it to be like that easy to do in futures. Yeah. Really think about chat with traders. Well, they don't make content anymore. He stopped doing stuff, didn't he? That one is kind of hit and miss. Depends on who he's talking to, right? I don't know. I just come back to, okay, if you're following, it's not bad to have people on YouTube that you like and have people that you learn from and things like that, right? But the question is, how do you know that the information that they're giving you is actually good? Well, I say that the way you do that is you have to have empirical information. So if they're sharing information with you that you can like verify, you can go and like, they say the market behaves a certain statistical way. You can actually look at the statistics and carry out the experiments yourself. Okay, that's what you want to look for. And I don't think that anybody else on YouTube is doing that. I would like to see other people on YouTube doing that because, like, look, I would like my YouTube channel to be more successful than it is, but it's not like the primary thing in my life, and there are certain things that I'm not willing to do. Like, I am not going to lure people in by putting big numbers up on a thumbnail. Maybe I should do one video where I have a thumbnail like that just to show how much it works with the algorithm. But I think it's wrong to lure people in with the promise of, making tons and tons of money when the vast majority of people that do this lose money from doing it, right? So there's certain things that I'm not willing to do. And the people that are at the top of the heap in the trading space on YouTube are doing that, then it's not very competitive. So I think that there's probably a limit on how successful our YouTube channel gets. Which means that if this information is going to get out to more people, it helps when other people start talking about it. I would like to see more people on YouTube talking about empirical data. Manipulating people's emotions is the way to grow on YouTube. Yep. It absolutely is. I think that the O-ring on my water bottle may have come out, because when I tighten this down, it feels like it goes down further. There's something not right with it. And I don't know how the kids would have possibly have pulled it out, but starting to get cold now. I'm going to close the window. But so if Patrick's talking about order flow, cool. Maybe that helps. Just know he's a liar. He's lied. He's fake trading in the past. I'll trade sim all the time, but I always try to be very clear to you about, you know, and you can tell by looking at my DOM. If the DOM has an S at the front of the account number, then it's a sim account. Well, not if it has a letter that starts with a number, then it's a live account. And I usually note. What's this? He was at a Bookmap webinar a few months back. The video was on Bookmap's YouTube channel. Honestly, it felt like a stand-up comedy show. Well, I give Patrick one thing. He's entertaining to watch, at least for a group of people. Nassim Taleb's book is a good guide to see who is faking. Now, I wonder why you come out to... Because to me, the big thing that we get from Nassim Taleb's books is that somebody having success from trading doesn't necessarily mean that you should listen to them. That you're more likely to have success from trading through sheer luck than you are through like a real repeatable edge. It's fat tails, man. Oh, DC Vera, I thought it was not ICT, but it was a guy that kind of supported his methods. Yeah. And isn't it crazy how many people have now kind of come out trying to follow the ICT thing that are also basically trying to scam their audiences? What's with that? I would have thought that most of the people that were following him are just gullible people, but actually it ends up being people that also want to prey on others. Has 90K followers. Crazy. You know, like the numbers always just are like, wow. Because we have what? 17? And I have to come and look. I used to like religiously check it every day and I don't so much. Oh, it's not 17, 14. That's right. Yes. We haven't gotten 15K was like the goal for last year and we came just barely short of it. And I haven't been putting out a whole lot of videos lately either, so that doesn't help. I did record a video yesterday though. Or Saturday. So I haven't edited it, but I do have one in the works now. So we can finally get that out of the way. Did you know that lizards store their fat in their tail? I did not know that. The whole term of fat tails is so weird, to be honest with you. You've been through this thing. I think that part of it is that it's Nassim Taleb kind of come up with the term. Because to them, to me, a fat tail is like, okay, here's the zero line. Or this is what I would have thought a fat tail is. It's like, and here you have this kind of really sharp distribution, and then this is like really fat, right? Which means that like there's a lot of outliers. Okay, the markets do that too, but what Nassim Taleb means by fat tails is that, you know, there could be this outlier, like there's just only one data point out here, right? But it's so far out that it completely skews. It'll say like, actually the average is right here. Does that actually tell you about how things tend to go? No, it doesn't. But this one is so important. You make more or lose more on this than everything else. That's what is meant by fat tails. He says maybe it should be called long tails. I don't know what you call it, but the terminology is not as standardized as you might think. Anyways, I was gonna say, like, I have 14,000 subscribers, and that to me is like an insane amount of success. Like, that is way more. I never thought that I would give her 1,000 viewers doing this. So to have 14,000 is just tremendous, right? And it's crazy to me. There's this group of people that are feeding you absolute junk, and they get like 90K sub. It's just nuts. Somebody asks on YouTube. Now I'm seeing here the comments have been left overnight. Can you create an ad? How do you create an add-on that will block me from trading an account in NinjaTrader 8? I made one of those. I can link you to it. I will link him to it. Let's see here. Supposedly it works. Risk Control Center. Oh, that was 2021. That actually was not that long ago. Maybe I should change things on GitHub so that I have a username that's different. When I made my GitHub account, I never thought that anybody would that I would be posting stuff with it. Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing on the news squawk right now is that Israeli Defense Cabinet has been summoned for a meeting for tomorrow evening. So that's probably why the treasuries are buying up here. Was geopolitical tensions. Yes, sold really heavily. Yeah. Was a geopolitical flight to safety. Is oil spiking? Well, it did earlier. It's actually kind of heading down at the moment, so that might be. I'm not going to say that it's not possible for oil to decline off of that news and everything, but I would, it doesn't quite fit in with what the markets have been doing, so it does give us a reason to maybe be slightly skeptical about why the market might be moving. Is there any research on crude oil prices, how it moves, and why? Oh, I'm sure that there's tons of research that I'm not familiar with. It's not one that I've really spent a whole lot of time looking at. So finding research about specific instruments is a lot harder. Like, there's some good stuff on treasuries, but it usually has more to do with the yield curve. And it's kind of like, maybe doesn't apply to your retail trading, you know? So what kind of stuff do they have for oil? Who knows? There's good volume in this move up. Well, it's been about, well, let's see here. It's been about 17,000 contracts net change. I mean, so far this would be like you're starting to get into, this is a little bit large of a move for a Monday. But if it's flight to safety, chunky boy move. Oh, totally forgot. Today is the eclipse. I also get 50% eclipse here, but I don't know if I'll even bother going outside and looking. I don't know if I still have the glasses. My area is a big spot for it, and been messed up, but I want to know something. Okay. So what's something really funny? Oh yes, because you were talking about you mentioned the earthquake the other day, and then I saw people on Reddit talking about the earthquake. For the last week, we've had horrible strong winds, a couple of bad storms, and multiple tornadoes, with one being in this area, and all those eclipsed camp. Oh man. So people are all camping out there and getting trashed. It could be worse. It could be Burning Man 2023. It would be interesting to see Burning Man this year. That's coming up soon, isn't it? Wait, when is Burning Man? That's usually like after May. That's usually in June, right? Good YouTube thumbnails, natural disaster happens, go long. Man, you got me thinking, because we are putting out a video about momentum. I think that this is, again, for you guys that are here on the stream, things that I've already been talking about, but I think that it could provide some information or a perspective that will really help a lot of retail traders, because I don't think that they realize that a lot of what they've learned about technical analysis and so forth comes from momentum traders, and that's really more of a swing strategy. And so a lot of the stuff that they're doing is probably not going to apply or work very well on an intraday time frame. You can still use that information to your advantage on an intraday time frame, but you're going to have to approach it differently, right? You're still going to have to be watching the daily chart to see if there's some momentum. So I want that video to do well, and I'm not quite sure how how I should craft the thumbnail to really get the best views on it, But, whatever. Now you got me thinking I should dig into my analytics. Well, I did see a spike for some reason on Saturday in my channel views. But if I was to go over the last year, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you know what's something that also really drives me crazy about YouTube is that a large portion of the success that you have doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Like, I do kind of detect there's it could just be a slight aberration, but there is a general upward trend there. So we've been more towards 500 views, or not 500, oh, maybe it is per day. Yeah, 500 views per day. But now we're up towards 600. So like 10% increase over the last few months, this year, rather. And I haven't posted anything. Like, what's with that? What's with that? The YouTube channel gets more popular when I don't post any videos, huh? Okay. Okay, let's look at the lifetime. There probably is a period where it's higher if I go to lifetime. Like maybe during 2020? No, actually. Well, okay, yeah. 2021. But that was, again, that was because of the pandemic craziness, right? And I felt like we were like, I don't know. I felt like the channel was doing better over here than it was over here. Isn't that crazy? This period right here is some of our best content. Man. I don't know. Maybe if we just keep trucking along and keep trying to make as good a content as possible, maybe someday this will just jump up, and then all these things, then we'll have to deal with all of those problems that I was talking about, where it's like, yeah, but then the YouTube starts to dominate everything, and well, I think that I've got some things set up so that we won't be so vulnerable to those sorts of things. Right? Because if the YouTube channel takes off, I just don't have to change anything. If anything, like, let's just say dream scenario, like we made $1 million off of YouTube. Just save that away. Then I would have enough to, like, I could live off of fixed income if I wanted to. And then I wouldn't have to worry about, how well my YouTube is doing, right? Think we're gonna go higher still? What should we be looking at on the upside? Well, there's that 16. And have we retraced the overnight move down? Okay, the overnight, the high from the beginning of the session is 13.5. I like to think my daily hitting it does makes a huge difference. You know what makes a huge difference, guys, is if you watch a YouTube video, you watch my YouTube video, you like the video, and then at the end of the video, you go and you leave a comment. Because a video, just getting 3 to 5 good comments at the beginning can turn it into a viral video. Crazy how that works, but does not take a lot for that to like kick it up into the algorithm. And then I think that we have good content, and then the content just stands on its own, right? But I think that my issue is that I have really good content, but it's not content that necessarily gets clicks from thumbnails, right? So I could YOLO. I do want to put more money into stocks and individual plays on stocks. Like I could have like the monthly $500 YOLO or something like that. Although The sorts of things that one might YOLO on are like, I don't really have a whole lot of interest in messing around with them right now. How I lost my hair trading. Dude, I wonder, because I'm turning gray. I'm gray. I'm only, what, 38? It is 2024. I'll be 39 this year. And I think that I'm going gray earlier. Well, certainly earlier than I anticipated. And so I'm wondering, okay, so what is it? Is it just my general health problems? Like I have ulcerative colitis and strong allergies and all of this sort of stuff? Or yeah, is it like the amount of stress I put my body through from weightlifting? Or is it the stress from trading? Combination of all of them? I don't know. I don't think that my dad had this much gray at his age, though, and I felt like he grayed early. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Part of it is genetics. Apparently, if you have blonde or red hair, you will go white. Like, and that's what is going on. So the hairs are not gray; they're just straight white. Change your YouTube handle to Gray Brush Capital. That's not a bad name. I bet you that exists already. Gray Brush Capital. It seems like well, okay, there's Gray Capital, White Brush Capital, Gray Harbor Capital, Bush, Gray Bush. Oh, okay, yeah, but Bush. Gray Bush. Well, the bush parts have not been going great. It's just my face. And I don't know if you think I even have literature. I don't even have any gray hairs on my chest. So what's with that? Why is it my face? You know what's the one that's driving me crazy the most is on this side of my face, right here. This is so funny. I'm going into this much detail. Okay, like here's my sideburn, right? And then here's where it kind of turns and goes to my cheek, right? And right at the intersection there's a group of gray hairs that goes down like that. So I can't really see it with the camera right now because I'm not grown out enough. But like right there. And so it makes that line look weird. Beard growth investments. What the fuck? Gray Bush Capital is a thing. What? What? Explain that. It's a person on a forum. Stock investor mainly interested in Chinese investments. I tell you, it's like any name that you would possibly come up with for an investment firm, it's like it's already taken. I don't get it. It's like impossible to come up with an original name for an investing firm. Just make stuff up and slap the name of a large tree on it. What do you guys think of this run that we're having up here? I mean, I think that concerns over geopolitical tensions is definitely a flow that I could see coming to the upside. But I don't know. It kind of feels kind of like, I don't know. Seems a little much for what it is. Like, that seems like, okay, I could see some little bit of flight to it, but that's like they're turning into a full-on panic. What do they think is actually going to happen that they need to hedge that hard for? They really think that it'll be the start of World War III? I don't understand. Well, we should have thought to put geopolitical tension into our flows, but since we didn't, and that's kind of like, this is what we thought at the beginning. Okay, we will put in news and events. Oh, this shouldn't be in news and events. This should be right here. Right here. So that should help. It is doing a little bit of a pullback. I think that we would probably need to pull back to like 10 before I would be confident in calling any kind of a pivot, though. You guys have been watching this Helldivers stuff. So over the weekend on Helldivers, there was a major order given to wipe out the automatons. So everybody got on. There was like 250,000 players all on the automaton front. And they actually did it. They defeated all of the automatons. And this guy took a screenshot when they were leaving on their thing where there was just one automaton sitting on top of a hill, so they took a screenshot of it because they thought it was funny. And so now people are making pictures of it like it's like on a magazine and stuff. But the fun in this game is just watching the the progression of the community as the story unwinds. It's been fun. It's a fun game. Well, there's 10.5. Candlesticks are markets, tea leaves. Only fortune tellers make money reading them. Wow. Oh boy, the top story on Zero Hedge, a secretive experiment to shoot aerosols into the sky over San Francisco to increase cloud cover. Really? Well, we know that they've been doing that, but I wonder what kind of a story they've got here. If this is, maybe I shouldn't be mentioning that. It was talking about cloud seeding. Will that, get us throttled on YouTube? I don't know. That one's like objectively does happen, but like I don't know if they put it in the conspiracy theory land or misinformation or what. From Paul Joseph Watson. Well, they're going to do it to try and limit global warming. Okay. Doesn't look like worth reading to you guys. But it is something that happened, apparently. Or is going to happen. It's so funny they could accomplish that with more trees. John Philippe. Well, the only real book that I think that you need for John Philippe is Trades, Quotes, and Prices, Financial Markets Under the Microscope. That's his book. And he's written a lot of research, so then after that, I would go and search for his name on Google Scholar and just read the papers that he's written. No one likes trees. They like roofs and skyscrapers for some reason. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. Okay, well, why is it more complicated than that? Why is there not a heavier why is there not a heavier focus on planting more trees as a way to deflect the effects of global warming? So, one, planting trees is hard. It's hard to plant trees. Like, you have to dig a hole, and like planting a lot of trees is apparently very, very difficult. And then it takes years and years for them to grow. And so it's not necessarily a very, doesn't move the needle in the short run. But then I also think that in order to really have a demonstrable effect on like global warming, you would really have to create like a new Amazon rainforest in the northern hemisphere sort of a thing, right? It would be very difficult. I don't know if that's practical enough to plant enough trees to have an impact on global warming. So we would maybe have to go in and say, like, create a measure similar to the measures that they make for Keynesian economics, wherein we say, okay, when you invest X amount of money, how much carbon saving do you get from that expenditure? And maybe planting trees does not give you as good of a multiplier as something else. No, I don't think that incentivizing people to plant trees on the roadside and stuff would make a big enough difference. Not that I have any empirical information to suggest that. That's just my guess. But it could also just be that large corporations don't make money from planting trees. And they do make money from throwing aerosols into the air. Or somebody makes money from it, I guess. Sure beats economically crushing people who aren't fortunate enough to be as wealthy as you are and can't absorb a litany of mandates and higher taxes. Yeah. Yeah, it's messed up, man. It's messed up that their approach is basically, well, we don't have any choice, so we're gonna have to hurt the poor people. But then they're not willing to make any sacrifices themselves, like not having a private plane, for instance. I don't know. If I was a billionaire, I think I would have a private plane. But I am pretty agnostic. Don't care about whether global warming is a thing or not. That's not my area of expertise. Again, I'm not going to say that I have a conclusive evidence one way or the other as to what is the degree of global warming. I'd say I've seen enough to suggest that there is a trend of warmer temperatures within the data. Okay. What the actual impact on the planet of that is, I don't know. But what I do know is that the policies that are being proposed don't seem to match up with the claimed prices. The policies that I see proposed are just ways to try and increase the power of government and make people more dependent on government, and are not actually things that would really save the climate, and or are things that make people, that are lobbying for money rich by creating, these shell companies that eventually flounder. I woke up to 55 degrees in April in Florida. Wow. But my area is not to say whether global warming is happening or not, or the science of that, right? My area of expertise, what would be my areas of expertise would be, one, the finance relating to that. And then like possibly empirically modeling things. So that's where I get concerned, is that I can see where it's like, okay, I'm not the kind of person that's diving into this data every day, so I can't say conclusively something on it, but I have seen evidence that temperatures are rising. Okay, and I've seen their models that suggest where it will go to and what the impact of that will be. So number one, the impact that their models show is not nearly as drastic as the people in the political sphere are making it out to be. Like, they're talking about a 1 to 2 degree rise in temperatures, and like sea levels rising 1 to 2 meters. Okay, which is not the doomsday scenario that some people portray it as, right? Second of all, I just know from modeling things that there's real limitations to our models. And so to say that the science proves that, we're going to be screwed by the end of the century and all be dead, that's complete nonsense. The data doesn't say that, and we have to understand the limitations of models, okay? But then my other area of expertise would be like the politics and the finance, okay? If we have a problem, what would be the best ways to tackle these? What would be the effects of different policies? And I see a bunch of policies that don't really fix the problem and just make people poorer. Like putting these crazy extreme limitations on things that really increase the cost of energy for everyday Americans. And meanwhile, China can pollute all that they want. That's ridiculous. This is just absolutely ridiculous. It's difficult due to all the concrete everywhere. Oh, is that what it is? We shouldn't have concrete? Well, you're not going to see them change that, because you need concrete and rebar to make nuclear safe structures. Do you know that that's what it's about? Like, before the 50s, they didn't use that much concrete in building a house and like larger buildings and stuff like that. But then after that, it was like any kind of a real building, you use rebar reinforced concrete. Why? Because all of their nuclear testing showed that structures built in that manner would withstand nuclear attacks. So that's like a national safety thing. Don't think you'll see concrete going away. Yeah, you don't want a concrete house, though, that's for sure. Dude, this is one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy every time I see it. You've seen these videos of, like, 3D printing a house, and they have this printer thing that prints concrete out, okay? Nobody wants to live in a house with concrete walls, I'm telling you. They don't. It sucks. You can't get Wi-Fi, you can't get cell phone signals. It sucks. Nobody wants a house with concrete walls. But you never see anybody in the comments talking about this. It's just always presented as like, this is this thing that's coming in the future. We'll all have houses that are 3D printed. No, we won't. No, we won't. When you pop up and well, okay, so I've seen that one where they've said that, or there was a study that suggested that some of the rise in temperatures due to climate change can be explained by, you know, they had a weather station out here and that used to be nowhere, and now there's a parking lot there, and so that's seen the temperature increase. But I'm not going to say that that's one study alone that proves the whole climate narrative false, right? It's just one study. And that's where, again, like, in order for me to really, really give a strong opinion on this, to be like, climate change is a hoax, or we need to do X, Y, and Z today in order to prevent the world from dying, sort of a thing. You know, I would have to be looking at this data every day, feel like I have a really good handle on the entirety of the research that's out there. And there are people that are like steeped in that. Most of them are saying that climate change is a thing, but there are other people that have been in that field for decades and decades and are kind of calling shenanigans. So I'm not going to make a, you know, point, but I don't have to either, right? I can just look at, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish and here's the policy and what is going to be the economic and social impact of that policy, and they're all awful, and I don't think they solve the problems, right? Like, Western countries are emitting more CO2 after some of these green revolution that we've had, right? Like, if climate change is a real problem, build more nuclear power stations. I can't take you seriously until you're making a stronger push to make more nuclear power stations. I just can't. There are so many great nuclear power designs that are safer and more efficient, and there's this great technology that we could have, but we don't, because we haven't been investing into it for like 50 years now, because you're all too afraid of, you know, a nuclear meltdown, something that is kind of proven itself to be a irrational fear. You get more radiation from glow-in-the-dark paint than you do living within a mile of a nuclear power plant, right? Like, it's just crazy. And even in the case of 3 Mile Island, that was contained, it didn't get out. Okay, and we have like way better technology for it now, but they don't want to build nuclear power plants. So I just can't take them seriously. Yeah, green revolution is peak luxury belief manifestation. Export all your polluting energy production to countries you outsource your labor and manufacturing to, and create a concept of net zero. So people ignore all the pollution you've exported and celebrate the net. Yeah. Exactly. And then India and China are just polluting like crazy compared to everybody else, and none of these treaties or anything do anything to really curb their pollution. Net zero is a laughable concept. I don't know. I mean, as a goal, maybe it makes sense, but like as a policy, seems kind of silly to me. But like this is so let's put it this way. The larger problem that I have with the climate movement is that their conclusion has been that the global warming means that we must reduce growth, essentially. They think that we need to make less stuff, we need to do with less stuff. We need to hold progress back if we are going to stop global warming. We need less people on the planet to have less global warming. We need people to consume less stuff to have less global warming. That's their main conclusion. And it just contradicts everything that we know about economics and human progress. If you want to reduce climate change, the best way to do that is with new innovations, which means that you need to continue to grow. You need more people so that you can have more and greater innovations. And the actual carbon impact of an individual person is not that great compared to all of the things that were like concrete, for instance. Okay, so make ways of making concrete that don't use so much carbon, for instance. Right? That's the problem that I have with it. Well, I think global warming being changed to climate change made sense because even though you're seeing temperatures rise overall, the way that actually affects your actual climate is incredibly complex, and so it makes a lot more sense. I think gives people a better idea of what's going on to call it climate change. But then there's this climate justice stuff, yes. Then we had to go in and inject woke ideology into it. Okay. What the fetch? I don't want this to turn into right-wing political rants Monday, but then the top story on Zero Hedge now is transgender human doll lectures JK Rowling about what a woman is. What? So I want to talk about, if we're going to talk about politics, let me talk about something slightly different, okay? That would be more relevant to people. Here's what I see going on in politics right now. The entire strategy of the left for the last, as far back as I can remember, is basically find individual groups that are minorities or may otherwise feel disaffected and play to specifically that group and promise them all sorts of benefits and give them everything that they're ever going to want. And what is happening in politics today, I think, is that this strategy is starting to blow up in Democrats' face. You come in and you promise each individual group something. Eventually, you start to get to a point where the things that you're promising to different groups conflict with each other, right? So, for instance, you come in and you say, okay, women is a demographic group that we're interested in. So we're going to, women tend to favor abortion. So we're going to push really hard on abortion. We're going to push really hard on giving more opportunities for women in education and workplaces and things like that, right? And then what happens is that the guys turn around and they say, oh, hey, they're like explicitly disadvantaging me in the competitive marketplace now. It's harder for me to get a scholarship. It's harder for me to, right? Among single millennial women make more than their male counterparts, for instance, right? And so now men are kind of turning around and are being like, hey, this whole thing isn't very good for me, right? And you can kind of make all of these kinds of arguments about like what's best for society and that. But like, that's not how most people think, right? Most people just know whether or not something is good for them or not, and are going to vote based on what's good for them, even if they don't explicitly realize that's what they're doing, right? Or you come in and you say to black people, right? Oh, we're going to help black people. We're going to give all these things to try and help the black community because they've been historically disadvantaged. But then you also say the same thing to Latinos and to Muslims, right? And then at some point, the needs and goals of those different groups conflict with each other. And that's where you get to, more and more black people are turning away from the Democrat Party because they're like, actually, this party doesn't really reflect what I truly believe, and they're not really actually helping me. That's what's happening in politics today. And like, climate change is just another level of that, right? Climate change was the environmentalists who have been around since the 60s, right? The environmentalists have their, agenda, right? Which doesn't, match up with reality. Like, I'm not saying that climate change is not a thing, okay? But, for instance, they oppose nuclear energy, which is just absolutely crazy, right? And eventually people will start to see those contradictions and right, realize, hey, this actually isn't that good for me. And that's why you're seeing across all these different demographic groups support for Democrats declining. And that's what I think's going on. The science of climate is, well, that's true. Like, it's very difficult for me to like trust the consensus and say conclusively like this thing is a thing or isn't a thing when I see so much effort to influence the politics of it. Like, if I come out with a study and it's an empirical study that says that there's not climate change, or that climate change is due to the sun rather than people, right? That should be like an interesting thing, and like, oh, we should investigate this more, and yada 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 yada, right? But that's not what I see. What I see instead is like, you should be disowned from the scientific community now for putting out something that disagrees with the consensus that we're trying to present to the public, which says to me that you guys aren't actually interested in doing real scientific research. But that doesn't. I think that where the right takes it too far is that they say it's so obviously a hoax. It's so obviously false. Well, that doesn't prove to me that it's false. It just proves to me that I can't trust the scientific information. So if I don't have like reliable empirical information about it, or at least I don't understand, I'm not entrenched in that world enough to be able to discern between what is the nonsense and what is good research, then the only logical conclusion for me is that I don't actually know whether, how real climate change is or what the impact of it is, right? I can only look at the parts that I am an expert, like in policy and in economics, and say, well, here is their proposed policy. Here's why that's stupid, right? Like, the best, most economical way that we know of today to reduce carbon emissions is build nuclear power plants. If you have to force people to do things, there's no real threat. I'm not quite sure where you're going with that one, but okay. I know. But the larger thing, though, with the climate change, it's not really an issue that's on a whole lot of people's list right now. Like, for this election, the two biggest issues on people's minds are immigration and the economy. People are very upset with the economy. I'm happy to see I've seen substantially more stories now recently about this thing that we've kind of been wondering for a couple of, or not wondering, but kind of been noticing with the last couple of job reports, that like the number of foreign-born workers is increasing and the number of domestic workers is actually decreasing. Like, it's actually less than it was from before the pandemic. And so it seems that a large portion of the economic growth that we're getting right now is due solely to illegal immigration right now. That's something that would have to be studied deeper to understand, but that might explain why all of these numbers kind of look good, but like everyday Americans are a little frustrated with the economy right now, right? Those are the biggest political issues. And it's funny how they kind of, you know, coincide with each other. Yeah, without it, stagnation at best, recession at worst. You might be right. You might be right that without the amount of illegal immigration that we've been having over the border, that the economy might be in an outright recession. That's kind of difficult to, you know, really understand the positive and negative impacts of immigration. Like, but there is very much a thing that the increase in immigration, having more people in the United States working and making money, even if they don't make a whole lot of money, will overall increase GDP. But it's also the benefits of that are not evenly distributed. There are some people that are business owners and they really benefit from having that cheap labor. But the people that miss out the most are the people that are having to compete with that cheap labor. So it's kind of hurts more average Americans. But I think that it's actually, it's kind of, you know, it's those luxury beliefs kind of going awry, right? Like the rich class, they know certain things about economics. And so they say, oh, I can do X, Y, and Z, and then that will work really, really well. And the problem is that they don't realize what the second order effects that can potentially be negative are going to be. Of course, you can never predict those sorts of things. That's why like change needs to be kind of incremental and intentional and stuff, right? So instead you come in and you do this thing where it's like we hold high interest rates, but then we put a lot of fiscal stimulus into the economy by doing things like forgiving student loans, etc., etc. And then we import a lot of people, and that should make up for like the negative economic impacts of it. Yeah, like, so that kind of zeroes in on the metrics that people tend to look at and makes an economy that looks good, but it doesn't create an economy that feels good, does it? And so Joe Biden's poll numbers are in the dumps because of it. I think that's the biggest, that like the economic situation, I think is probably the biggest thing holding Joe Biden's poll numbers down. That and number two is he's too old. Immigration is a long-term play. We don't reproduce the workforce fast enough, and migrants will. Oh, see what happens. The difficulty with the immigration issue is that, okay, so now what do you do? Close the border. Okay, then there's tons of people that are already here. Not very practical to send them all back, I don't think. Where are they going to go? Then you kick them all out, and now you create a crisis in Mexico or wherever you're kicking them out to. It's just like it's a huge mess, and I don't know where it comes down and like what the potential political consequences of that are going to be. I kind of suspect that Donald Trump is going to win this election, then he's going to go full ham on immigration, and it's going to be ugly. No one's going to kick them all out. No one wants to see that humanitarian crisis. Probably, I would think that the most likely thing would be they step up enforcement, they step up the amount of people that are being deported and so forth, but that, yeah, a lot of those people still just stay. Probably. Probably. Until some distant point in the future. Amnesty will be proposed to whichever party gets there first. I don't know about that. You know what? If Republicans felt like the border was under control, then after the border war is under control, maybe you could get them to vote for an amnesty bill. Right? But the fear is you can't let an amnesty bill encourage more illegal immigration. That was the mistake that they made the first time around in the 80s. So kind of curious here. The ZN, they've pulled back a considerable amount. So they came back all the way to 07, so it's kind of back to like normal levels. It looks like that was like a panic flight to safety bid, and that flow is now subsiding and prices coming back to stable. Okay, but ZB is still like right up there on the highs. So ZB hardly came back at all. And you're getting a pretty clear flattening in the yield curve as a result. All of the spreads are flattening too, yes. So this is one of those perfect examples where when I was talking about spreads, that it was like, okay, so if Israel is about to start World War III, that's not what the news headline was. The news headline was just that their war cabinet has been summoned. I think that that's because they're going to be moving into Rafah soon, but I don't know what's going on. Okay. Should the yield curve flatten or steepen? And I don't think that I can accurately predict that. So this time it flattened. So I should have bought the 30-year and sold the 5-year. I would not have expected that. I don't think. Should I have expected that? I just don't understand why that particular thing would make you want to buy the 30-year yields more. .09 is a point of control too, so. What's this? Ken Griffin of Citadel. It is irresponsible for the U.S. government to incur a deficit of 6.4% when unemployment is hovering around 3.75%. We must stop borrowing at the expense of future generations. Oh, wow. That is, I have not seen that issue presented in that frame. But it is such a good point that, like, the deficit is as high as it's ever been when employment is as low as it's ever been. That's actually, and it's actually, I don't know if Ken is thinking through the implications of that statement, though. Ken, you listening, Ken? Because I think you're a Republican, Ken, right? So if you're a Republican, you're generally going to favor like lower taxes, that sort of a thing, right? Because that will increase economic growth, etc., etc. But if everybody is already employed, then does lower taxes really going to result in that much economic growth? Right? That kind of suggests that we need to drastically decrease the liabilities for the United States and probably increase the amount of revenue that we're getting to. So for that, the percentage of GDP relative to government expenditures is like the government expenditures relative to GDP overall, rather, is like all-time highs. So that really suggests that it's just the government is spending too much. Yes. But that's an interesting statement. I'm going to be keeping an eye out, see if, that gets discussed a lot. Ken has been getting a little bit more outspoken lately. Trump says abortion should be decided by the states' will of the people. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman famously has no equity in OpenAI, but startup bets like Reddit, Stripe, and Helion have made him a billionaire anyways. Really? So how did he get in those bets? Explain that to me. I want to become a billionaire from being a part of a bunch of different startups. It must have been that he was like a startup player founder in those companies, and then OpenAI was created later. And then OpenAI ended up being his biggest venture, even though he had no equity in it, because it was supposed to be a nonprofit sort of a thing. Oh, yes, we should check and see what Disney stock is doing this morning. Yes. Looks like the S&P 500 sold off on the open around the time they were getting that kind of flight to safety bid over geopolitical concerns, but the S&P 500 has recovered those losses. But I want to see, is Disney still declining? Oh, yes. Okay, so they had a little bit of a recovery on Friday with the rest of the market and are down today, but it doesn't look like they are excessively so. I kind of suspect, though, that a lot of this rise that we've had in Disney as of late has more to do with the proxy fight. And now that the proxy fight is over, that people dump shares and it'll go lower. But let's see what happens. Oh my gosh, that dog is going crazy here. Hold on. Oh man. Did you hear any of that? Man. So my wife, as she was coming back from taking the kids to the school, found a dog on the road. And so she brought it home, and that's why my dog is going nuts. Because he wants to see the other dog. That's why he was going, like he's being like strangled or something. Freaking dog. Man. Okay, is some validity in behavioral economics to intraday trading? I would say some. I think that behavioral economics tries to look at the higher picture. And I think where the best stuff comes from is where we find, like, how does the things that happen at the smallest level then go and end up affecting things all the way up to the big level, right? And then we can kind of see at every step of the way where it comes from, right? I also think that when it comes to markets are very competitive. So if you have like a behavioral tendency, like the market tends to act in a certain way because of people's behavioral biases, the edge in that is less than the edge in there's a certain tendency in the markets that's caused by the structure of the market. Okay. Because if everybody understands that behavioral bias, then they change their behavior. But it doesn't matter how you change your behavior, that structural inefficiency will still be there. You know what I mean? We're much more interested in fundamental inefficiencies that are created by the market microstructure. But probably the one that is the biggest deal is that markets are more volatile when they are selling than when they are buying. So that matters. That's something that you can take and include in your trade. Yeah, this dog that my wife found, did not look very clean, and it did not have a collar. Unusual whales. More low-income earners in the U.S. are not dining out, per Reuters. Alligator thinks that the bid that we had here this morning was more of a pullback, more of a technical move. The Fed should be the strategic anchor to this market and leave the play-by-play commentary to others, says El Arian. It imposes an unnecessary amount of volatility onto it. Man, make up your mind. Weren't y'all like saying earlier that they need to do more to like, you know, keep the markets under control and yada yada yada? Now you're saying, you're too active in the market. I don't understand. Make up your mind. I still kind of feel like that the market is, that the Federal Reserve is, well, maybe it's not the Federal Reserve's fault, but I don't think that the market has really a very accurate view of like what their expectations for Fed policy should be. Well, yeah, this thread about Ken Griffin of Citadel, like all the comments are ad hominem attacks. Ken Griffin prints infinite shares like the Fed prints unlimited dollars. He knows that the re-hypothetication derivative bubble that he exacerbated is much more detrimental to the economy. What is he talking about? Are they talking about that Ken Griffin has increased the size of the derivatives market? That's what they're talking about, then they're full of crap. I don't know. We're coming to the end of the stream today, and I'm just kind of out of... I guess my mind is already elsewhere on this dog that just came over that like really interrupted my thought processes today. Oil has been super whippy. Yeah. Well, dude, like look at the chart on oil, man. Like they were up early. That was around 7 o'clock. So around the time that we were kind of seeing this flight to safety bid across the markets, and then oil just like got slammed back down. So I'm not exactly sure. There may be headlines and information coming out that's not being disseminated to the market equally. And so we just may not be in the know. But that's definitely going to give you day traders backlash in oil, isn't it? And that's like a almost a $2 move too. Oh man. Hmm. One of my computers seems to be running a little hot today for some reason. The only one that sees absorption at the highs? I don't know. I haven't noticed anything excessive, but I don't have my eye over on that the whole time. What I will say is that we're up by about 2,000 contracts net since the lows, which is not that big. So All right, well, I don't know. Kind of looks like, you know, there was some stuff going on and the market has kind of died down, and people are probably a little cagey here at this point because we feel like we don't know what's going on, right? There's somebody in the market seems to be concerned that a war with Iran is going to start, but I just don't see it. But I think that's all we got. It's just kind of a Monday, so nothing really to say about it. I feel like that there should be something to say, but there's probably really nothing too big to say about it. So I will catch you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.